Hello, magical friends, and welcome to Neurolinguistic Astrology Live. And tonight is a very special show because we're going to be doing a birth and death chart reading of Miss Marilyn Monroe, the original sex symbol. I was supposed to do a Sunday night show last night, but of course, time has not been anyone's friend lately. I feel like it's been moving at a very interesting rate lately, so hands up if anyone else feels the same way. But that's all to be said in the cosmos and the stars as it stands right now. Oh my goodness. Hold on a second, guys. Okay, so I am wearing my Miss Marilyn Monroe shirt in commemoration for this reading tonight. So just to go over the details as to how the show is going to run, we're going to go over Marilyn's birth chart. I did her birth chart way back when I did a synastry reading between her and JFK and that connection. And in doing that, I ended up down this whole rabbit hole, finding out that JFK actually died on the same day, of the same year, of the same month as Aldous Huxley and C.S. Lewis. Now, that's a whole other series. I can link to that in the description if you want to take a look at those videos and those analyses. I think that even going back and looking at some of my older readings, I would kind of want to update some of them just based on some new intel and how I've shifted my lens in terms of interpreting the stars and the cosmos. And so I think that what I hope to do from these live readings is that as we look at the charts, we can develop a sense of like, okay, everything has an astrology, right? Every event, everything. So this is why we're going to go over Marilyn's birth chart, yes, which I've done before. And so this is going to be a new reading on that. And then we're going to do her death chart reading because she actually died about a year before JFK died. And it was really sad, actually. She died of a barbiturate overdose, and she was found in the early morning. And just really sad. And so I just wanted to give some honor, shine some light on Marilyn's light, and also look into the state of affairs as the cosmos were. So if there's any clues as to how she left this realm, and if there's any clues in terms of that book, that story that she's left us from start to finish. There was a movie that the girl from Blade Runner who's really pretty, who's Joy, she was Marilyn in it, and it was hot. I thought it was good. Like they did the way she died. We're gonna get into all of that. Let's get into it. Okay, so here's the presentation. You can see Neurolinguistic Astrology because I'm gonna get into just briefly my personal lens on what I mean by Neurolinguistic Astrology. So if anyone's familiar with NLP, so Neurolinguistic Programming, it's the idea that language and thought, the intersection of psychology and language. I was actually studying this before I got my certificate in NLP because in university I took a course called Language and Thought, and it went over how simple things like how story structure and even sentence structure and syntax all affect the way that our brains process things. So at a very base level, words are spelled like they affect the way that we perceive the world. They help us build models out. And so even when we think of words on their own, if you have like one word like the, and you just had that sitting by itself, it doesn't have power. But if you put it in front of something like a title like The Dragon Warriors, it gives that title power. But on its own, like how does it have meaning? Things have meaning in context to other things, and that's similar to human beings and the roles we play for each other. Like in our own books, in our own stories, in our own video game of life. We are playing out a certain role, let's say, but it's always a lot more fun when you have friends along the way. And this is all about giving ode to the greats who have come before us, and especially as I lean into the whole art of go-go dance, the whole DJ music, all that kind of performance aspect of what I need to express creatively and how that's going to come out from an astrological standpoint, because I do feel that the arts, theater, this way of maybe combining the way that we create content from in a digital world and bring theater to that in some way, and sort of, I think this is where we can kind of have something where there's a live stream aspect of a show, but then have it also be a live show. I mean, I think they tried to do this also, like when you have, what do you call it? The laugh tracks. Were those ever like live act, when you had like TV shows that were filmed in front of a live audience? I actually think that Win Fitness, the gym that Kevin used to work at, it's not even there anymore. It used to be in a television studio that was downtown Toronto, and it was cool if you like worked out there though, right? It was almost like an auditorium level, and even if you like did classes, it was up in this like cool kind of loft area space. And I do really miss studios like that where I did a lot of dance practice there. So I'm going off on a tangent. So welcome to Neurolinguistic Astrology. We're going to go into this presentation. I look at the alignment of all the stars and all the cosmos as giving us some keys, some clues into the game of life. And so the specific angles and aspects with the energies of the time that we're in, and not tire, can give keys to how to play the game of life at the highest level that we can. And I've told this story to a few of my Dragon Warrior friends as I get the series ready to be born. We do have the lunar Chinese year of the dragon coming up, my astro friends. And if anyone knows me, I love moon stuff. I love moon princesses. I think I'm going to do a series of all the different moon goddesses from all the different cultures, because I think that that's something to consider in terms of when I think of God. This is just my personal lens, and this is why I love astrology. My look at astrology is, and why neurolinguistic astrology go together, is that astrology is such a beautiful classification system for reality and mapping things out. Like, what other the stars that our ancestors have looked up to every evening, every night to guide us through, this life. We don't really know what's going on. Kevin was playing this interview between Connie Chung and Marlon Brando, and he had this funny quote at the end where it's just like, when you take your last breath, you're just gonna kind of look and be like, oh, what the heck was that? And sure, yeah, I guess so. But astrology, looking at the stars, looking at the patterns, the cycles of time, the clues, that's stories from the greats of archetypes that have come before us. And in this case, Marilyn was an incredible sex symbol. She was born Norma Jean, right? And Norma's also my mom's name, so there's this like fun connection there. I have to look back at my old presentation because I think I made some mistakes with certain readings with Marilyn, but I will correct that right now. But I just wanted to put this out here in terms of my personal lens as it comes to astrology. And so if you would like to book a reading either in NLP or astrology or a fusion of both of them, I do those readings on Thursdays and Fridays. They are 1 hour, they are $100, but I have special holiday special coming up to interpret your own superhero powers based on your birth chart, because all of the little elemental qualities, for example, I do not have a lot of water in my chart. All of my water comes from Scorpio placements. So I find that I also gravitate to other Scorpio women, I find, even though I'm a Taurus, and that makes sense, right? Because Taurus and Scorpios oppose each other. Anyways, going off on a tangent, those are the keys to the game of life. You can book a reading with me on Thursdays and Fridays. I will leave a link in the description on how to do that. Let's go into the birth chart of Miss Marilyn Monroe. I'm going to bring this up a little bit bigger. She was born June 1st, 1926 in Los Angeles, California at about I think they know this for a fact, 9:30. I'm going to go this way. How about that? So let's do a redo of this reading, Miss Marilyn. And if I really think about it, when I created, I was just editing the master mix of the Truth, Beauty, Freedom, and Love show with my friend Arthi, and she's doing a solstice gathering on solstice. So I will leave a link on all of those things in the show that we're doing and where to find that in the description notes. But I don't know where I was going with this. Oh yes, diamonds are a girl's best friend, and crystals, that's how I interpret it. Diamonds, yes, of course, but crystals, jewelry, all those jewels, very goddessy, I feel like, Marilyn. And you can see, like, even Madonna copied that with Material Girl when she did that music video, that whole look of like the pink and the gloves and all the jewels. I need to emulate that in my own little way. And that song is also in Moulin Rouge. Diamonds are our girl's best friend. I actually love Moulin Rouge, and the inspiration of the title of my new show is from the idea of the Bohemian Revolution, the ideals of truth, beauty, freedom, and love being at the forefront of everything you do, and above all of these things, love at all of it at the heart. So looking at this chart, Marilyn was oh my goodness, Wolfie's having dreams. It's okay, Booba. He's also a time traveler dog in my book, so maybe that's what he's doing right now. So the sun was in Gemini. Marilyn was a Gemini. So was JFK. They were both Geminis. That's why there was that connection there, and they were probably able to talk to each other and have mind experiments with each other, thought experiments with each other on a deeper level. But Marilyn herself, you see here, Mercury is very close to Gemini, so this makes sense. She was a fantastic actress, and this idea of expressing herself, her sun in Gemini, being able to be a chameleon. So she was born Norma Jean, and I always remember this because Spice Girls had this song of, I forget what song it was, but the lyrics go something like this: Norma Jean had a 7-year itch. Some like it to a fever pitch. And in that, it makes sense because Marilyn did 7-year itch. And Gentlemen's Prefer Blondes is when she did that iconic song of Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend in that look. And so let's see here, other things in her chart. She's an Aries, so she's a fire sign who's rising. So her ascendant is in Leo, which I don't think surprises anyone. I was part of this beautiful group of Venus soul sisters, I'll call them that. And in it we were talking about your sun sign. So Sasha, shout out to you. Hopefully, if anyone's interested in joining her group, I will leave a link to any of those kind of things as well. Because props to everyone who helps interpret all of this stuff, because it's a beautiful classification system, and the ancients have been looking at these things for, philosophers, like who does philosophy where you're like able to just, I can't even see the stars from where I am in the city, right? So this is our way of kind of like looking at the cycles and learning. And if I even just look at this chart at the offset, speaking of diamonds, doesn't this look like a diamond? Marilyn's chart, just look, diamond. Just and Mercury and the Sun are together in Gemini, and we have Scorpio in Saturn. This is something that we have in common, girl. This is a very tough position, and that's why sometimes I feel like I feel like kinship to Marilyn in some regards. I mean, I've always, it's so crazy, like ever since I was a kid, I've wanted to have blonde hair. I like wanted it so bad, and I went through all of these trials and tribulations to get my hair blonde, and it was just like, yeah, I finally got there with my friend Dorothy, who's now in Mexico, and I figured out how to do it. But I'm just letting my hair kind of come back and like be as it is for a while, and maybe when summer comes around again, do something fun, but leaving it and then using the wigs for cosplay for now. But this Saturn in Scorpio here, this is a very intense position, because like Scorpio's occultish, right? And also like this unseen knowledge, but also like Saturn in here is like karma and time, and there's just a lot of unseated like ruthlessness, almost like yourself in this position. So it can be a tough one to deal with. And here we have it, luckily I think it gets softened for her in the fact that her North Node being here in Cancer, along with Pluto. So that's kind of it's a little bit of like a fatalistic kind of thing too, if I think about it, because Pluto is like Hades, the underworld, death. I talk a lot about Pluto just because I have, like Pluto as a ruler, and I think that this is a better way for us to look at generations as the influence of Pluto in the generation that it is like traversing through. And if we think of even events or what astrology is, it's like seeking to dissect and understand and analyze the energies as the time is of like what the cosmos is doing at the time, right? So if we have Pisces, Cancer, and Scorpio, so if we think of trines, they are always within an element. And here she has a grand trine, and trines are typically like talent trines, and it's in water here, right? So this idea of her being very charismatic, her being able to connect with people on an emotional level, very much because of this beautiful trine here. And she knew when to play into certain personalities. And the one thing I liked about the movie that we kind of brought out was the fact that there was Norma Jean, and then like Marilyn Monroe as a persona. Like she made Marilyn Monroe up, and I wish that she learned to have a little bit more fun with that instead of feeling trapped by it and being like letting Marilyn kind of like do these like crazy things and like being like, but that was Marilyn doing it, wasn't me. It's like almost, I think that that's a Gemini thing too, and I have a Gemini placement, and this idea of the multi-self and resolution of those selves within yourself is not necessarily always an easy task, and that can oftentimes be medicated with things like drugs and alcohol to help ease kind of like dealing with it, because it's not an easy thing to deal with. And so I think that that's ultimately what happened to Marilyn. I'm not going to jump ahead too much to that just yet, because I want to talk about her moon, which I have to look back, and I feel like I incorrectly thought that her moon was in Pisces, but I feel like I'm going to correct this right now. Moon in Pisces people, I do feel like that is a strong indicator of psychic ability. There's also a strong tendency for those, I'm going to speak to all of us, like who have Neptune placements, whether in trine or opposition, or you're dealing with like major planets such as moon, sun, and even rising sign. And I totally went off on a tangent before I was trying to explain the whole rising sign situation versus the sun sign, because I think we think of, and I've talked about the rising sign as being like when you enter a video game, that your rising sign is like, you're picking a character who you're gonna play. So like in an RPG game, you're gonna be like, I'm a ranger, or I'm gonna be a dwarf, or I'm gonna be a mage, and all of those things come with like different, I don't want to say pros and cons, but it's just different factors. Just like when I'm making my book, you have different ways of how this all, like how you're going to play the game. So different starting parameters. It's not to say that as the game of life goes, that you wouldn't be like, I'll give an example. Like, let's say you start, and Halo did this in their book, or like in Halo, this is going to sound really nerdy. I'm talking about Halo in a Marilyn Monroe birth chart reading, but okay, whatever. Let's go with it. So in Halo, there's the Forerunners, and the Forerunners have this thing where they'll evolve according to the caste that they're in. So either you're like a warrior, or you're a builder, or like you have a librarian, or you're like I forget what she is, like a healer, or like a life creator. And so based on that, your evolution physically and mentally and all of these things, like your armor, it's all based on that. So I relate that to rising sign situations, because in this, you can also, what happened in the book where you had a builder, for whatever reason, needed to evolve, and then could only evolve based on having I don't know what you want to call it, like not a host, like a mentor or something. You need to have someone, a teacher, to help you evolve in that direction, or you could just get fucked up. So he had a builder who evolved in a warrior way, so you end up with this kind of hybrid thing, which I resonate with, being half South African and half Filipino. But what I'm trying to say is that could also be considered as your main personality, and a lot of astrologers would attribute your rising sign as then being more important, or more indicative of how you're playing the game of life than anything else. So Miss Marilyn Monroe having her rising sign in Leo says to me that, hey, she was very much a performer about the presentation. That's how she chose to play the game of life, as this performer. But I think there was a deep emotional disconnect between being able to resolve the different parts of herself into having love, right? Being worthy of it, because you have this very strict teacher right here in Scorpio being like, hey, you are this and you are that. And these two parts, like your dreams and how you feel on the inside, as well as you have Jupiter here as well, which expands everything you touches. So Aquarius is a very smart sign, and I think that like having the moon there being in your deeper side is that like she of course was much smarter than what she let on. She wouldn't be as good as an actor. It's like knowing when to play the dumb blonde when you're trying to get your way, right? So there's that aspect of that in her. There's also here, I think last time I talked about how her Mars is in Pisces. I didn't know this, but you can see here that she also has Chiron in Pisces as well. And Pisces is very much a dream sign. It rules the dream world. It's also, my friend Arthi pointed out, hospitals. It's also birth and death. It's right before like connection point between birth and death. And if you're having Chiron here, driving healing from that, I think that it is said that Mars in Pisces is rather not malefic, but it's said to be malefic. I don't like that word. I would say it's more like it's challenging, because it's almost like Mars is the planet of action and doing and drive, and having in Pisces, it's almost like having that fire be like moving through water. It takes so much more energy to really express what your dreams are on the surface, because you're busy playing into this mask of what you chose you're playing your hand at. So there's a really hard way of having resolution between the different parts of yourself in one person. And that's how I think art is supposed to work. That's how I think that's why later on in life Marilyn tried to be more artistic, be seen as like a real actress, right? And I think that she may have found fulfillment from being a mom in some way, because looking at here, her North Node being in Cancer, is that like it feels like creating a home life would have been the ultimate goal for her, or like, you know, having just someone take care of her and her baby. Very traditional, but that didn't end up being the case, unfortunately, as we can see in terms of her death chart. And her death shocked the world. It happened far too soon. And crazy story about this was that it took me a million years to get her chart correct. So to explain death chart, you know, like when, and this is my perspective on death, I suppose, generally, that it's not an ending, it's just the end of this story, and her energy, her spirit is now on to the next adventure. And so we can derive a lot of understanding of this life that she created, that she lived out, that she touched a lot of people, right? Like, even when I was looking up videos of Marilyn, like, her performance is, it's just, there's something to be learned from her, like her face, her facials, and like her like flirting, and just all that woman juiciness, that goddess energy. Marilyn, like just once in a lifetime. And it all comes from, you know, like if we think of this even from like a base biological level, like men found her super attractive because she was curvaceous and fertile, right? Think of like, and women being an extension of like Mother Earth and fertility and all of that. I think that, you know, she died at 36. Yeah, 36. And on August 5th, 1952, they called it at, I think, 4:30 a.m. I don't know why I put that number wrong there, but it took me a little while for, 4:30 a.m. I don't know, put a hashtag. See, I told you I had all these issues trying to get in this death chart, get it right, because then I kept on putting it in at 53. So because JFK and all of them, that was a year later, like November, it was a 60-year anniversary on November 22nd from 1953, but Marilyn had died on August 5th of 1952. And if we look at this chart here, I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger so we can see. A lot of stuff going on in Leo. Interesting, because her rising sun was that, and as I said, like that is like what we choose to play the game of life at. And she had died with her hand clutching a phone, and they said by suicide, possibly. It could have just been one of those things where it was like, I hate the world, and then you take all these pills, and then as your body's shutting down, like realize like, oh shit, what the heck did I do? And then try to call your doctor, try to call for help, and it's too late at that point. I feel like it was something maybe along those lines, because just being emotional. And anyone else who has a moon in Aquarius, it's crazy because so Marilyn was born with a moon in Aquarius, and I think I was saying that moon in Pisces people are very psychic, and moon in Aquarius people can feel like there's like multiple cells playing in your theater of life in your head. So you can use that to your advantage in a sense of like you can almost be clairvoyant with it, I think, in a sense of you can almost think through timelines and all the possibilities through. And I would say that this is a commonality for anyone who has a moon sign in an air placement, where your emotions, if you can like almost feel through and put yourself in different scenarios where you play out a different role, you can almost see into the future as to like, so if I said this, they would then say that. And I'm saying this from like as I'm writing a book and writing out dialogue for different characters in the book, and anticipating how that back and forth goes is a little kind of like, it's like a crazy psychedelic kind of feeling. But hey, anyways, I got sidetracked. Let's go back into her death chart. I was just also just saying it took me forever for me to put this in accurately, and I finally did. She died early in the morning. They discovered her doctor, and I think her lawyer discovered her, and we can see here the Sun, Pluto, Venus, and Mercury are all in the sign of Leo, and they're all opposing the North Node in Aquarius. And if we look at where the opposing place of the North Node is, you have the South Node, and the South Node is about past lives. And having all of this activity here, it's almost like, oh, wow, that's crazy. I have to take that back. So when she left the realm, the North Node was in Aquarius. The moon was in Aquarius when she was born, and also when she left. So this interesting lunar cycle of the moon coming home. And the moon, of course, is like inner world, inner mother. Her mother was schizophrenic as well. She became an orphan as a result of it. And I wonder if there was... I do also think that when we think of schizophrenia, it's not really understood by our society. If we know how reality functions and, you know, our own little universes and things like that. And beyond that, and I think this is where I was getting a little bit confused between different charts, is that I think that Marilyn's mother had a moon in Pisces, and I do think that when people who have psychic abilities are not aware of what those are and don't know how to deal with them, you self-medicate, or you do things, and they did this in Dr. Sleep, where like you medicate it with alcohol, so you're not aware of all those signals and how to interpret them. It's too much. So this can also lead down a slippery slope of becoming alcoholism, of course. And hey, I mean, it's something that it's a human wound, this falling into addiction, because you're trying to either run away from something that hurts, and in this case, it's almost as if all of this being here, and her being her ascendant, would then have been very close to where the sun was. It just, it's like she kind of like traversed out of like a sun gate. That's the way I kind of look at it. And I think that Marilyn was an energy signature. She also embodied this voluptuous, earthy, fertile, beautiful goddess energy, something to like look up to, and also just be very sweet and breathy, and like just make women go crazy. And that's like, it's a beautiful thing. It's just like that juiciness of like a peach, and like her quote of like, You can be the juiciest, ripest peach, but like no matter what, like there's always going to be someone who doesn't like peaches, and that's fine. And she lived that whole life out. I think the way that she wanted to. It's a shame it ended in the way that it did, and that can be for multiple reasons, as I said, right? Like what she dealt with as a child, like was that ever like dealt with? Like I'm not the biggest fan of traditional therapy, let's say. I want to broaden that definition of what therapy looks like. I look at, you could do learning about your astrology as therapy, you can look at dance as therapy, you can look at working out as therapy. I think anywhere you're learning about yourself and even revisiting memories and reframing, like NLP, we talk about how we have a certain memories that we sometimes play out in our head over and over again, and they generate a certain emotional response. But how are we even remembering that? And can we, if it's hurting us, can we reframe the way that that memory feels to us and how it looks so that it doesn't have that same response? And connecting that to hormonal health, how your body on a bioelectrical level then gives out certain signals is related to all of that. So the more we know about like us, the more we can get where we fit within the greater opera of things. And let me just look at Neptune here. So Neptune's in Libra, hanging out with Saturn here. And yeah, that's like splitting the chart across the midheaven. And so, yeah, so I will take this back a little bit, but from first glance, in terms of when Marilyn had left, I talk about barbiturates, which is what she had overdosed. I did a little search on it just because the 1971 convention, when they made psychedelics illegal, also included barbiturates. And this is crazy, like you don't hear about barbiturates anymore, and what they're generally prescribed for is to treat insomnia, so to help you sleep. But of course there's a ton of side effects as it comes to all these different things. And it's just like I just feel like I was doing this whole character inspirations with my friend Arthi, and I found that there was like themes between the different characters that we liked, and one of them was this idea of a character arc of going through so much pain and trauma, which Marilyn clearly went through in an early part of her life, and then went from that to being this beautiful symbol of like sexiness and appeal, like the first Playboy and centerfold and all of that stuff, and to have it kind of come back around and be this like tragedy. I don't know why that's a story, and I'm trying to look here for clues as to like why did it have to be that way? Is that fated in the stars for it to be this tragic death of like her literally trying to call out for help and it being too late? I don't know. Mars is in Scorpio. I think right now Mars is in Scorpio too. And so this is very occulty, and I don't know, there's all of this stuff, if you want to go down a whole conspiracy rabbit hole, that Marilyn, there's foul play involved, that like the CIA killed Marilyn, and she had JFK's baby. Who knows? I don't know. I don't think that's the point. I think the point is more that her energy signature, this idea that women, men, whoever, whatever you came, like this avatar, can hold different energy signatures, and that she was, holy cow, Venetian as hell. Let me just take a quick look here, just in honor of, sexy symbols, to take a look at her Venus placement, just as like a learning moment for all of us about Venus, and then we can wrap up this evening's live stream. Okay. Venus, where are you? You are in Aries. Oh, girl. Yeah, me too. This is why I like shoe stings, and this is why I like video games. It feeds my Aries, Venus being an Aries situation, but mine's in a different. I've got some other stuff going on. But her Venus is very close to Chiron, so Chiron is this little key of the wounded healer. I think I was mistakenly calling this Chiron earlier. This is Uranus. So Uranus and her being a rule breaker and bringing in, like, imprinting on people's dreams, that's very much in here. Along with Mars and Pisces, leave that there. We're talking about Venus. So Venus being close to the wounded healer is like, there's healing to come from love. And I mean, we can all vibe with that, right? That through love, we find intense healing. But I think that there's a level of, being loved by the public. And then if you're like falling from stardom, like it was said, like she like had a hard time showing up for work later. And I think at that point, like, just one like needed to be taken care of a little bit, right? Let's see. Yeah, so Venus here and Neptune being also close to Leo. So we want to think of Neptune as being the higher octave of what Venus is. And so being an expression of that goddess energy of literally being a dream girl, a pinup girl, on her rising sign in Leo is very much expressed in Marilyn. And I still love you, baby girl. I'm gonna maybe do like a Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend rendition. I'm gonna see how I can pull off the pink gloves and all that. But she died. Yes, I already went through the whole overdose situation. I'm not going to rehash that. I will come back to looking at that death chart. However, and maybe what I will do is take her chart and see if there's a connection between her and JFK's death chart and their synastry. And I don't know, there's like something, if you like overlay all of them together, maybe there's something else that comes into light if you like take a look at certain planetary energies, because each of the planets have their own energies, and I look at them from a story perspective. So for example, Gemini is hermetic, and Hermes and Thoth, they're all about how reality comes into fruition, into form. In the tarot, it's the first card after the Fool, and it's about, ideas. Everything starts as an idea, but then what does it take for that to become something that exists in a tangible reality that we all share? And that's purely magic. And so Norma Jean took this idea of Marilyn Monroe out of the ether, this goddess, vibey, blonde bombshell performer, and brought that into a reality. And now she's a forever thought form, like she exists in immortality. So that is all very magical, and there's something to be said there for being able to do that as a creator being, Miss Marilyn. So thank you for that, Norma Jean. Alright, I'm going to go down here for more magic, and if you would like to book a reading, we can also go over synastry readings if you would like. Like, for example, you can do a synastry between anything. So I've done this for my friends before, where you do like yourself and like a potential crush. I am not one of those people who it's like, oh my gosh, so I'm a Taurus, and there's like a video floating around about how like all Taurus women have been hurt by a Libra man, and that's not true. I'm married to a Libra man. He's great. We're both in Venus, so like we're just different expressions of her. But I'm not, in terms of synastry, as you can see, there's like so many other placements going on, like where your moon signs are, where your north nodes are, where your Venus is, where your moon and your Venus are in relationship to things like more karmic things, like your bigger storyline from like past selves and past lifetimes, and what clues that can give you in terms of how you can find deeper spiritual healing going forward. That can all be derived even from like synastry readings between yourself and your mom, yourself and a certain time that something happened, because you can do a synastry with yourself and what's happening right now, and that's how you end up with aspects. So for example, right now, I'm not going to do it right now, I'll do that on a different call, but or a different meeting. But let's say, the full moon is in Scorpio and you're a Scorpio, and you also have other placements in Scorpio, so you're going to feel this moon more intensely and in different ways based on the different configurations and cosmic activations you have in yourself, and how that kind of like interacts with each other. Oh my gosh, I keep hitting my snowball microphone. That is a sign to end it. So for more magic, you can always contact me for a reading. I will leave a link in the description below. If you would like to support the show by dropping us a mushie, you can do that here. Oh my gosh, this little QR code here, but I'll also leave a link in the description as well. And so I would like to thank all of you for joining me this evening for Neurolinguistic Astrology Live, where we went over the birth and death chart reading of Miss Marilyn Monroe. I'm going to also take this and re-edit it with some fun little clips of her, and some of the things that I talked about in terms of her iconic way that she presented her Earth avatar to the world as a source of inspiration. And like as I said, being an inspo behind like Moulin Rouge and Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend. And ultimately, although she presented this whole bombshell, I think she just really wanted to be loved and taken care of, and perhaps been a mother and had a little bit of help with that, because there was a deep mom wound there that needed addressing, that never got the chance. And I hope that in the next life that was able to that was able to kind of come to a resolution. All right, Starseeds, thank you for joining me this evening, or wherever you find yourself in the cosmos. I hope you have a beautiful one. I'll see all of you in the next video.